Episode number 33, the Solo Club Podcast. Glen, Ken, Anna, we're ready. Let's drop that beat. Alright, we're ready. This episode, Ken and Anna have no clue what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's what I said. You said you were ready. It's like, are we? And are we ready for this?
I think you're ready because you're Mr. Wing It, and I am just pumped because this is not my usual.
Anna don't have a clue.
Yeah, Anna has no clue.
I have no notes. I have no script, and I have nothing to hide. So let's go.
Yeah. Take this as a break of the usual of trying to expect what's coming next.
Yeah. Anna takes a break tonight because now we don't have to have all these show notes, all these things to go through. So we just get to hear it straight from Anna on what her comments are on this topic.
Yeah.
And here's our topic. So I was watching one of these YouTube channels on reselling, and it was kind of funny though because they had gotten this comment and they actually replied to the comment and they were open to this challenge of this comment, which I would just totally. Well, we're gonna
ignore
hear Ken's and
as
Anna's
a YouTuber.
Feedback. Yeah, totally. Here's the question that they asked this YouTuber to do. Can you compose a list of the top brands? They're talking about clothing. The top brands that are the most profitable and sell the fastest. So, and it's kind of fun because they also, commented after that, like, well, I figured this being a YouTuber, this would not take too long for you to put together. Very easy to put together this list, and I'm definitely interested in this to grow my business. So,
Interesting.
Again, clothing seller or not, you could relay this to any sort of niche that you want throughout as a reseller on eBay. First off, does this exist? Items that are top branded. Oh, I think they also might have thrown in there easier to find as well.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Most profitable and sell the fastest. That's a lot to take in. Ken, first off, does this exist? Is this even possible? And would this even be worth your time to create something like this? The reason why my easy response was like, well, you're pretty much asking somebody to do the work for you, period. I mean, that's what we're trying to do as resellers.
That was my first
to find
thought.
the best products possible, period.
If you could just give me a shortcut and wave your magic wand, that would be so awesome. Can I copy your homework also?
Yeah,
true.
I would take on that challenge at $100,000 a year for the next 20 years. I'll tell you everything.
I'll tell you everything you need
I'll
to
even
know.
update the list yearly.
They'll even make you
updated.
ramen.
Yeah, with free food.
It makes great ramen.
With an in-person sit down.
That's a good deal.
$100,000 a year
It's a
for the
good
next
deal.
20 years. I think that's a good deal.
Great deal.
At that point,
Would you do it for 23 views on YouTube?
I mean,
Come on now.
That's why I'm not a YouTuber.
23 is my favorite number, but
Yeah,
I
I'm
don't
like,
think
come
I would
on,
do it for
views,
23.
come on, not even likes, not even comments, not even hearts, just views, right? Just like people.
Oh man, that's hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, I think it should be easy for a business person to know that answer.
Why?
But to act, a real business person that actually does it knows it because, well, let me rephrase. Not a lazy business person, not a stupid business person.
So you're commenting on the asker of the question here.
The greats.
If you were a business
greats.
person, you would not be asking.
Right, the
me
greats. The greats know this because I would go as far as if it's repeatable enough, it's engraved in your mind, and if it's profitable enough, you've borderline exhausted this brand slash cheat code, right? It's just like telling me like, hey Ken, there's this one store in the middle of Alaska that's running 50% everything Nike as soon as they release. I would know that, like I would know those by heart. But to be able to give it up to somebody that easy, that quick, that's why it's got to cost you.
Yeah, at least take me to dinner first.
Yeah, I think there's dinner is just getting my number. Like that's not guaranteeing a response yet.
You're gonna give it all away in a YouTube comment? A reply to a YouTube comment?
A reply.
Like, no.
Right, a reply.
Let me just copy and paste my list right here in this comment reply.
Yeah. And Anna has it on her notebook she carries. She has multiple, by the way, so you have to figure out which one.
That is actually true. I have 4 on my desk right now.
There we go. So let me break this down a little bit, though, and why I wanted to talk about this. Composing a list, let's say, of the top brands. Now, I'm going to break this down each individually. The reason why this thing is important is because I think as resellers and people need to realize and how things change and how every niche is also very, very different. Mm-hmm. If you're talking about top brands in sneakers, top brands in clothing, top brands in, I don't know, some sort of, toys or action figures or statues or things like that. I mean, it's everything is different, right?
Right.
Top brands in sneakers right now are probably not the top brands in sneakers, I would say, but models, I would say, are not the same in 2018, are not the same in 2022.
Yeah, it's a moving target.
Exactly. And that's how business works, though, is that whatever was working in 2019 may or may not work right now. We can't even tell you that, right? Because some things maybe are just like they're just clicking and people are still buying that. Let's say Panda Dunks in 2018 compared to now, or On Cloud and Hoka's compared to now, compared to 2018, new or used, is a totally different ballgame.
Right.
And that's what makes it so challenging as a reseller as you continue on and you're building up your business, that when you find, let's say, these items in a store, in a thrift store of a certain brand, the way you're going to learn about it is by looking it up.
Yep.
By doing that research. Someone might tell you about a certain brand that you're never going to find in a thrift store, in a retail store, in a garage sale. You may never come across it, period. Yeah. But whatever you do come across, that's the stuff you got to be doing your research on and looking up, because you're finding that in hand. And so
Anna, what's your take on that? Knowing that you have pretty much, I'm assuming you've done the most research in the most wide variety.
That's true.
And I mean, Glen started there too, so he kind of like has more kind of like a like a menu of what to look for. What is that for you? I mean, over time, do you even get to master one, or do you even, because you are, I feel like even now, we've been talking off and on the podcast. You are trying to evolve your business at the same time as you grow.
I think what's interesting about the premise of the original question is that all of those parameters, right? It's like, what is the most profitable? What's the easiest to find? That's a tricky one. Yeah. And fast to sell through. Like, technically, all of those are quantifiable, right? So you should be able to just push a bunch of information through some analysis, and that list should spit out the other side, right? Mm-hmm. But logistically, like, that is an impossible question to answer, because like you're saying, everything is dynamic, and everything is dynamic differently from category to category, from niche to niche, from source to source. Like, there are so many moving parts of this. I don't think it is possible to answer the question accurately. I think you
Can
could.
AI do it?
No, because I think it changes too fast.
Yeah,
it changes too
The
fast,
market.
and literally, even by the time, like, think about if someone were able to say they do have some magical AI, right, that can spit this list out for you, and today it is accurate. By the time you go and implement
You execute
the information from it, right, you execute upon that list, it will have changed. So it's like
yesterday's price is different than today's price.
Even if you could literally have it in hand at the time it's accurate, like, it is literally always changing. And so that's why this is really interesting that this is coming up right now, because I am in the middle of, like, with my sister-in-law who works for me, but she still lives in Georgia and I live in Illinois. So her, like, next phase of contracting for me is going to mostly focus on sourcing. And just recently I was actually in the airport on the way back from Washington, D.C., making not exactly this list, but basically going through each category. And I was looking through, 7 years of my own personal sales. Now, that is not to say that the things that I've already bought and sold represent all inventory, all possible inventory, right? But out of my own actual experience, I looked back at my top, like, top probably 300 to 500 sales over the last 7 years, and I looked for patterns. Like, I did not put them through an actual data analysis, but I looked through the whole list. I was sorting, a bunch of different ways and noticing these patterns of, like, what types of things or what brands have done well throughout this whole time, and might be a good for her to have, basically like a pick list. Anytime you go into a new source, look for anything that falls within the purview of this list, right? Just to give her some guidelines, because it is the Wild West when you're sourcing miscellaneous. It's like you can't know everything about everything. But that was what I had to go on. I didn't go research the entire internet or all of eBay's, sales data of their 50,000 clothing sellers. And that's only clothing, right? I didn't look at all of that data. I just looked at my own to see what's already worked, and let's do more of what has been working. It's just, I can't even explain the sense of how massive the amounts of information you would need to make that list truly are. Like, it just wouldn't be possible. So also, there are people, like, I follow a lot of people on Instagram who are sellers who always are putting out, like, bolos, right? And I'm sure you guys see that all the time in sneakers. But it's like that stuff is like, okay, this is today's bolo. Like, a year from now, it may not hold water anymore. And that's kind of the understanding, right? So to just put out some ironclad list that's gonna stand the test of time, it's like, I don't have a crystal ball. Like, do you?
I've never been a fan of Bolo stuff, but I'll let Ken go, and I'll respond to that.
Here's my hot take on the Bolo List. I hate Bolo List. I mean, for real. Like, if there's anything I hate more in business, it's like trying to get a list that will make me successful. I mean, and here's the reason why. I think Bolo List makes you lazy. It narrows your field of view. It kills random opportunity. And I think correct me if I'm wrong, Anna, for using this term, the serendipity of great things and great story happening to you while you're doing this business, I feel like it eliminates those, because I think you're boxing yourself. It doesn't matter if this Bolo List is so big, it's still a box.
It is still a box. And it's like, I understand, especially people who are learning, or like with my sister-in-law, she works for me, so she wants to she wants to be on the right page with what I would want, right? So I'm like, I get
but
having
see, that's an
guidelines,
instruction.
but
that's more like an instruction, right? Like, that's like
it's more to help her to be better at looking the way I would look. But a huge key factor, like you just said, serendipity, one of my absolute favorite words, by the way, is, you know, for her to look with the eyes that I would look with and then be open to all the possibilities. Like
Right.
that is really where the secret sauce is, like so many times.
Yeah. So sorry, Glenn. I was making fun of your Bolo list.
Let me take that video down.
Wait, did you actually ever make one?
No, no.
Oh,
Never Bolo.
oh no! It's like, how did I miss that? He probably hid it from me.
I typed in Bolo eBay on YouTube though. I wanted to see what. I
Oh,
just typed
man.
it in right now. Actually,
How many
while we're doing
results?
this.
How many results?
Oh, there's a ton. 200 plus items you can sell on eBay for big money. Best
Yo.
Bolo video ever made. People pay insane money on eBay for these category Bolos. Be on the lookout.
Yeah.
That,
Why haven't you made a Bolo list?
Come on now. I mean, I think with the Bolo list, what about Bolo list compared? I know this is off topic, but Bolo list for Amazon compared to Bolo list for eBay.
No, see, I think Amazon gives you the Bolo list, the scanning and the ranking.
Yeah.
That's their Bolo list, right?
That is their
Like,
Bolo list. But then
like-
you're also that's why you're stuck with 100 other sellers trying to sell
exactly.
thousands of units.
100%, and then undercutting each other by a cent until
Yeah.
somebody just
Gets buy
willing to,
box.
gets buy box or gets like break even or that.
So go with me into the weeds for a minute here.
Okay.
Because I'm chewing on this in my own mind, but like what is the difference? What is the difference in maybe in spirit or maybe in practice between a Bolo list and just like you're at the water cooler with your reseller friends and they're teaching you stuff in the course of regular conversation. You're learning about a
Right.
brand you haven't heard of before, and that's going to be helpful to you in the future, right? Like, what's the difference? Why is the Bolo list so much more egregious when kind of that natural conversational learning process is like something we've all done and benefited from, right? Like when you're talking shop, like what's the difference?
Well, I think like a full list of things is just kind of like puts you in some sort of, well, like Ken said too, it's like you're looking at all these things, but you're not going to know all of these things. You're not going to see a lot of these things. And, 500 bolos, 200 bolos, I mean,
Yeah.
that's...
Try memorizing that.
Try memorizing
Yeah.
that, but when you are out there in the field, though, that's why it's important to do your own research on what you're actually finding. If you
Yeah.
go out
What's
to the thrift store
available.
after watching this video, you're not going to find most of these things, period.
Yeah,
No.
you might pass up on some much greater things because you're just
100%.
going, oh, that's not on my list, so pass.
No,
Yeah.
literally, I think that's kind of like how we, and when during our early start, me and Glenn, or like me, it's really me and JC stumbling upon all these higher end soccer cleats and higher end football cleats, because like we didn't at this point, Glenn, were you making videos about them yet?
No, and that's what I was going to talk about, like the devil's advocate on my own videos, because on whatever I find, I could technically be a bolo
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
somebody, right? Like, oh, you
Yeah.
found those Jordan 3s
Yeah.
at Ross, in 2009. I'm going to go try to find it too.
Yeah, and then you're just gonna be finding like you're going through so many stores and trying to look for what Glenn's finding, and you come to realize you're not in his city, and that's one of the things that we figured out, right? Different
Yeah.
city, different location. The only time it is applicable if we're neighbors, and we're like literally trying to compete with each other. I think
Yeah.
that's the only time Bolo List works.
And the cleats that I never posted about was like a 200 pair haul that Ken found.
Yeah.
They made a bunch of money on that I never posted.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
it's like it is like, and I think that's kind of like what serendipity is, right? Like those opportunity that just breeze by, and if you're not attentive, and I think that's the biggest thing. The curious mind always kind of like discovers something new and something that's kind of like really like a defining moment. I think that's the term. If you are doing and too focused on a list, you miss those defining moments. Because like what kind of confidence are you instilling in yourself that, okay, I take Anna's list, I just go RVing to all the thrift stores and everything like that, and
I
then
mean, box trucking.
box trucking, and then doing that, right? And then after that, And then after that, I'd be like, did I just like really elevate myself? I mean, I probably read way better this time, or I probably, like I became another Anna, but I'll never be better than Anna that created the list. So I'm like, come on, like I read this. It was crazy. This is kind of like just falling to pieces. It says Marquise Brownlee, MKBHD on YouTube, interviewed Tim Cook, and they were talking about the iPad, and there was like, they were talking about like, oh, there's so many rumors and leaks about him, and Tim Cook was like, see, the goal was never to be the first, the goal was to be the best. And I think if you have that mentality of like, oh, I need to get to it first, and you're just going to be the same thing as everybody. Because everybody's like, okay, going through this list, picking this item. Kind of like, it's like the remember, what are those monkey things back in the day, Glenn? Anna? What are those? The one of the hottest toy.
Monkey things?
Yeah, they're like monkey toys. On Target or something like that.
Monkey toys. I'm trying to think.
A Furby?
No, it was
Elmo?
like it's like 2 or 3 years ago.
We're good guessers. Oh,
Monkey.
2
I
or
don't
3
have my
years
Bolo
ago.
list, so
Oh, let me
Yeah, I
check
have
your
no
Bolo
idea.
list, Glenn.
yeah, check my Bolo list. Monkey.
It's the
something.
fingerlings. The fingerlings.
Oh,
Remember
okay.
those?
Oh, I do kind of remember those. Now
Remember
that you
those?
mention it,
No,
they are little monkey things. That was a really good description, actually.
Yeah.
I just couldn't think of it.
Well, that's because we didn't really chase for them, right?
Yeah,
Well,
I
remember.
didn't.
Okay.
I was
Right?
like, I have no idea. Yeah.
was it like $14 or something like that? $11.99, and then everybody was flipping it for 30, 40, 50. And then like, okay, so let's say like, oh, you got the Bolo list. Okay, you made a bunch of money, or you were the first ones to it. What's next?
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Herein lies the problem, right? Like you're saying, being the first, I got to get to it first. The emphasis is on it, whatever the
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
Instead of we want to be the best, where the emphasis is on you and your skills. So here's what we're going to do, Seller Club. We're going to redefine the Bolo list. It is no longer henceforth composed of items. It is
Things.
composed of skills.
Yeah.
So
Ooh.
how can we be better at being on the lookout? That's what the real Bolo list is.
The Bolo
True.
skill,
Right.
not the list.
But it's the
What are
list
the-
of skills. How do you be good at being on the lookout for whatever it is?
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah,
we need
yeah.
to know.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing that really shaped my kind of like process of sourcing when we started was really trying to become the best at researching stuff. So in most brand new products, or even used products, they still have them. Like, you got product codes, right? So some people, what I've noticed, they would just search on the item and type it on eBay using product code. And they go off on it. Like, oh, this, because it's by product code, they assume that every listing has product code. Or the search shows them everything on this
Yeah.
item on the product code.
It's not representative.
That's not
comps.
correct.
Yeah.
Right? Because there are listings that never include product code. So
Yeah.
your view of, let's say there's 100 items, but there's another 1,000 items that is the same item but didn't include product code. And that's how I actually was able to hide my store for the longest. Nobody could find my store because they
you
knew what
didn't
my
use the product
photos
codes.
look like, because and they knew what kind of stuff we're finding. So the easiest way, if you found something I found, I just type the product code, and then I just look at photos and be like, oh, that's Glenn's photo, because there's product code in the listing. So I think the skill really is the research part. So what I would do is, pro tip, I would go and type the product code, look at how many items are there, 100 items. And I would copy the whole name of the product and search it again. And then I could see the true count.
Yeah. You'll even see maybe different colors, maybe different
right.
sizes.
And then you were better at narrowing. It's like, okay, when you thought there was only one size 9 and you were going to buy 10, Next thing you know, if you type the full name, there's probably 200 size 9s. And
Yeah.
it's just a different style code, right? Like 100 is black and white, but a 010 is still black and white.
Yeah.
It might just be a different, more black than white, more white than black. Like that is like a killer for a lot of people. So I think one of the Bolo skills, if you guys could, like could talk more about experiences about like
Yeah.
the research skill.
Yeah.
Research is huge. I mean, yeah, I think that's got to be a pillar of the Bolo skills for sure.
Well, I think if we're going back to what you guys said on being the first compared to, I guess,
The
like,
best.
the best and the
best, yeah.
skills. I mean, this would be my own example for the YouTube channel. I mean, me always trying to get there first because not only did I have to record, but I also, picked up what I knew would do well. So, me never selling cleats at all, soccer cleats, football cleats, it didn't really cross my mind because I'm also thinking being the first at the store and being the first on the channel wise of how many views or things like that would come in and selling what I knew. But in realistically, if I was going to spend the time as a reseller more than a YouTuber, I would have gotten more skill and built up more of the skills on the research side to know that these cleats were selling for $180.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were $20. Like,
Yeah, they were cheaper,
But
right? Like, 'cause,
Yeah.
like
At the same time, though, I think, in my world of thrifting and stuff, I think that something that deserves to be on the real Bolo list of skills, too, is going early, often, being thorough. Like, it's how
Yeah.
you're looking, right?
Yeah.
It's like the kind of the mindset or the intensity or kind of, I don't know, just completeness or thoroughness of how you're looking for your stuff. Like, if you just go into Goodwill once a month and breeze around and don't find anything, you can't say like, oh, like it just didn't find anything good. It's like, well, you haven't like been there looking with like really like hungry eyes, right? Like you
Right.
have to
Yeah.
really look and you have to go and revisit it. But also another one that I'm thinking of, Ken, I have seen you do this like in action, but there is a relationship building aspect to this too, right? I'm thinking about what are the things that have led to being in the position to see things that you wouldn't have seen before, right? And sometimes that's a relationship with a store manager or somebody who's working on the floor who's like, you're like kind to them and you're like willing to kind of ask them, do you have anything else like this in the back or whatever? And like you sometimes get to have access to see stuff that you would not have seen, right?
Yeah, I mean,
like
if you're
you
following
wouldn't have
a
had the
list,
chance to look at it at all.
yeah,
had
if you're
you not
following
built a
the list,
relationship.
you won't be doing that. You won't be doing that,
Right. You'll just be like, yeah,
right.
right.
And I think that's one of the things that early on, I think I've known by owning previous businesses that at the end of the day, it's everything boils down to relationship, right?
It's people.
And
Yeah.
it's people, right? Like when we sell to people, we buy from people. And I think I said this at one point on an interview. I said like my superpower is actually people, like trying to build a relationship with people and figuring out what they truly care about, and and if they care enough about their job, which is part of selling products, then you realize like, wait, I'm the answer to the things that they care about, right? Like,
yeah, it's
if
like
you're a
where's
store
the
manager,
really
yeah.
mutual benefit here.
Yeah. And I think it's kind of like, like, and that's having the mindset of like, okay, let me create opportunity. Let me try to find out more opportunities. That's not me like handing like, hey manager, I have this list. Do you have this at the back?
Right. They're like,
so
let me slip you a 20 and you can tell me all the secrets. It's like, no,
Yeah,
you're just
the fastest
building
way
a
to get kicked
relationship.
out.
Yeah.
I mean, Glenn, talk more about that. I mean, I think you're living it currently within your business. Most recently, that you've developed this, and it's just like, hey, what did it stem from the Nike outlet? Really, ultimately, right?
Yeah, pretty much, I would say. And you see so many new employees. The turnaround is crazy, too. And you're pretty much reintroducing yourself to new managers and new people all the time. And Ken knows that as well. And how many times that, Ken would know this too. It's like manager would be like, hey, I know you bought these last time. We got these in. I don't know if you're interested in these or not. But we got these and they're at $20. So they're at $10. Next thing you know, you're buying whatever that is because they offered it. And then you look it up, you're doing the research. Hey, I guess I'm buying these now. Here's a new item I never knew about. A new brand I never knew about.
Or like, we just got a case of these in and we haven't processed them yet, but like, do you want to look at them? Like,
exactly.
like they want to sell their product, man. Like,
Yeah. It's like, sorry, Mr. Manager. I just go off whatever's on this list. I would love to look at that, but I don't see it here on the list. So maybe next time.
Well, the easiest way is to say no, right? And I think, the thing that I could, advise people is find a way where it's saying no is not the easiest way, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what do I mean by that, right? What Anna mentioned earlier, if you're kind to them, if you're respectful to them, if you show up consistently, if they know you're the person that puts stuff back properly, or even try to help clean up the store, and to an extent provide some snacks and some breakfast to them.
Snacks within reason go a long
way.
way.
Right? You have put yourself in a position where that person would less likely try than just instantly saying no. And I think that's most greats or most pivotal defining moments for a lot of people is they were able to create that relationship. There's probably a very slim chance of somebody getting rich dealing with people with not having that moment, because at the end of the day, as much as people don't view others as competition, people are inherently good. People actually would want you to win. And I think ultimately, going to the premise of what we've always said is dominate your city. So, meaning build relationships around your city before you go too far. Because if they don't know you by your first name, you don't go there often enough, or you've never been kind to them for them to remember who you are.
Yeah. And here's another thing, though, is that you're talking about owning your city, though. How many times do resellers how many times do they rush things by not brushing up their skills because they see other resellers at the stores? So being first comes into play again. Yeah. Where, hey, so-and-so's here. Are they leaving to the next store? Are they going to beat me to the next one? And some people do this to where like, well, I'm going to leave too. I'm going to beat them to the next store by missing out on the stuff that was available at the first store because you're feeling like you're going to miss out on whatever's at the next store. Oh, there's nothing here. How do we know if there's nothing here? Did you rush through it?
Yeah.
Are you trying to beat someone else instead of brushing up your own skill?
It's like you don't know what they're going to buy or what their budget is or how many other places they're planning on going or what they just bought yesterday. Like, they might have come in cherry-picked a little bit and left. Like,
yeah. And what
Find
even fits in
yourself.
their business model.
Yeah,
exactly.
But see, at that point, it just becomes more important to, like, it's like the scarcity mentality takes over, right? And it's like, oh no, I have to like rush ahead and get ahead of this other person and beat them to it so that I get something. I gotta get it for myself, you know? Which, I mean, by all means, go out and get it, right? But it's like when it becomes like this scarcity thing, I feel like that's another kind of like serendipity killer, right? Like you're now just like, you have this little tiny view and you've got your blinders on and you're like kind of rushing away from something that might be really good because you're just afraid. Fundamentally, you're just afraid you're going to miss out, right?
Yeah. And I think selfishly though, and I've always had this, this might be a topic for some other podcast, but being nice to competition is actually selfish. Is actually very self-serving if you think about it.
Because it works better than the alternative.
Exactly right. Because there's a reason why they said keep your friends close, but keep your enemies closer. Right? Is that the thing, right?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, right? That's why I always for me, I'm always gonna say something. What's up? It's like, and if they come out with the giant bag with all the soccer cleats that I like, that I wanted to get, I was like, man, great haul. In the back of my head, I'm like, man, I just got beat by this guy. That guy deserved that price, right?
Yeah.
And then I go to the store, sweep it clean, make sure they didn't miss anything, because what the crazy part is? It happened to me. It happened to me. I got sloppy. I got so many. And Glenn, what I left was a Nike VaporMax Swarovski. Like a $300-$500 shoe at that time.
Hello.
I got everything else but that.
But you're trying to not only be the first, but not brushing up the skill on the research.
Yep. Because I was just doing it's like, I'm getting everything, and then just got sloppy, didn't really clean through it and everything like that. So now I was like, every time somebody gets a big haul, I always clean up after them, because they probably pulled the me.
Because maybe success is also a serendipity killer, because then the scarcity mentality tells you, oh my gosh, I found this great thing, I better wrestle it out of here before anyone else takes it away from me.
Yeah.
So you can't just be peaceful and thorough and go about your business because you're like, oh my gosh, this is too good to be true, right?
Well, I think that's the reason why we're naming it the list of skills. It's a list, right? And I think this is a list that I think would get you to greatness if you do it all. And if you miss some, you'll be good. Yeah. You'll be all right. You'll be okay. But I think the biggest defining factor of the big jump, right? Because you know how they say okay, if you make this, you're the top 10%, right? Yeah. And then the next, if you're the top 5%, and then from that, right, the gap from 10%, 5% to the top 1%, it's pretty big.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Significant, yeah.
So it's whoever got to the top 1% has the list of skills and has implemented the skills. Either at some point they've learned it, or at some point they found somebody that has it and hired them, because again, that's kind of what big companies do. It's either if they can't do it well, they'll hire out somebody that can do it well, or they'll just buy a business that has done it well.
Yeah, true. Right.
You're talking about competition and also the managers and the relationships you're building up. Nobody likes the cockiest reseller.
Nobody.
The manager.
Are you sure?
The competition.
Are you sure, though?
And more.
I think they get a trophy.
They get a trophy. It is wild on how some of the resellers that I've seen, and I'm like, why are you even doing this and sharing this and acting like this?
It's you're trying to stop, bro, stop it. You're just hurting yourself.
You're embarrassing us. You should just start applauding them. Wow, you win. You win.
You win. I was like,
well
I'm
done.
I'm gonna start bringing medals.
There you go.
Please do it.
I'll do that. I'll do that every if I start really seeing a cocky competition, I just start bringing medals and
just silently walk up to them, quietly, gently place a medal over their head.
Yeah, and then just the next day it's today you deserve flowers.
And that's where usually they'll cut off that relationship.
Yeah, can you be more specific? Because I don't see this a whole lot in my little thrifting yard selling corner of the world, but I have heard tell of this. How do people act? What is it about?
Yeah, Glenn, let's make a list of what not to do.
Man, I think because
how not to be while you're on the lookout.
Yeah.
I think, what was a prime example? I think there was a reseller
don't name
that were
any
just
names, but
No, but I think there was just
don't be this guy.
those like a reseller that just kept on talking about like how much money they're gonna make per thing, and
Oh, no.
and just kind of bragging about it, and it was just kind of like almost kind of implementing like, hey, you're stuck here working at this store while I'm gonna make all of this, which made it even
Yeah.
worse for the employee and things like that. It's like, why are you even doing this?
The employee's like, you know what? This is so weird. My scanner's not working anymore. I can't sell you any of these. Sorry.
Yeah. All right.
The whole POS is down for the day.
Yeah. And I think
Wow.
from reseller to reseller, though, there's like the comments are like, well, you're late again. Well, you missed out on this. Well, it's like, I didn't ask you anything that you're sourcing or what you're doing. I mean, I'm doing
Right.
my own thing.
Yeah.
You may pick up things that I don't really care for, or maybe you got things that I would like to pick up, but I don't care to ask. I'm on my
Your
own
own
thing. Like, it's
mission.
not,
Yeah.
yeah. And that's like another stage. And those are the ones
Wow.
that also are when they lose out on stuff are very, very silent. So
Yeah.
it's kind of
Well,
interesting.
I mean, those, I wanted to know this because I'm like, man, how I know from experience with people in general, right? That kind of stuff, that kind of behavior, like they're immediately showing you what's the most important to them, right? Their self-esteem rests upon how much money they're making or how much better of a deal they're getting or how much better they are than you or how much firster they are than you, right? Like, haha, I was first and you were not. Like, it's like, oh, I get it. Okay, so your idea of yourself rests entirely on being better than me. So that's
Right.
that's super healthy and
Yeah.
cool and mature. Yeah.
No, I think
Don't be that guy.
Yeah, don't be that guy. I mean, you're gonna get medals. You know, you're gonna get medals, but it'll be fake medals, or you become a clown. But I think this created a really cool topic and discussion when it all started from Glenn's question that he found.
Yeah.
saying, Can
So what do
we-
you think, Glenn?
What do you think?
Can it be
and next
done?
thing you know, like Hustler Hacks video goes viral. Glenn provides the list.
Yeah. It's
Bolo
the end all
List.
be all.
Dude, we should do that. The list, yeah, and then just plug our podcast right there. Here's the list.
List of skills. I think what's kind of reminded me of like the Barry Sanders quote, like the running back for the Lions back in the day, because he never did any touchdown celebrations. Like he never did any dances, nothing. He just handed the ball to the ref. And I think they asked him, I don't know if the quote is correct, but something similar, like, why didn't he do the dances? And he says, because I have to act like I've been here before.
Wow.
Dang.
Composure.
like scoring a touchdown to him was nothing new.
Right.
And it's kind of like, that speaks so much louder than just like running your mouth, the cockiness, the reselling of that type.
Yeah.
And so
Totally
reminded
agree.
me of that a little bit.
Yeah, and I think overall, in long term, the people that means well, do well, and are just inherently good gets rewarded one way or another, whether it's publicly or not. But I think the most valuable thing that you gain from all of it is you become the person that, a better version of yourself, and that people truly and genuinely want to be around with. And I think that really is a challenge to the era we live in right now, especially in the social media world, lights, camera, action, where like, are you the man of integrity? It's funny because like when we go around, like, especially Glenn, they say like, oh, that's super cool that you're actually who you are in real life. Like you're not different in the videos, right? Like I'm like, it's like I was just gonna say like, nah, he's there is fake. It's like it's kind of like I think that's the biggest compliment of all, because I think you become just an extension, right? Like whatever you project in social media or out in the world, whether in person, right? Because you could be seen from afar, or like that employee that sees you but maybe never had conversation with you, and later down the road it's like, hey, what's up? Like, you've always been good, you've always been kind of respectful. And I think that's kind of like the ultimate reward for all of this. And I think, I don't know, maybe it's just, maybe we need to shine more on that spotlight. Maybe we need to put a spotlight on those stuff. And I think I'm glad we're talking about it. What's your take on that, Anna?
Yeah, I think just from this whole conversation, like, thinking over all of it, I think the Bolo section was very interesting, like kind of stumbling into that. But, I think about all the people whose content I love to see where they're sharing like what they've learned, or like, hey, I found this brand, I hadn't heard of it. I did the research, I sold it. Wow, it sold really fast. I got a great price for it, and now I'm sharing it with you. I super appreciate that content, I think the thing that the big takeaway for me of all of that is just like, if you want to be great, you're not going to get that from a list of certain specific things to look for. You need to look past that, look past the content at the process, right? Because the people that I love to follow, for example, who share things like that, I don't think they should stop sharing it. But when you read between the lines, you're hearing about how they looked really thoroughly, how they did research, right? And then how they have the sale to prove out what they thought was true based on their experience and their research. And that is the real treasure. So I just think, like, don't expect and really, like, don't be entitled and ask for a shortcut list. Like, that's not going, if that you think that's gonna level up your business, I'm just telling you it's not. Like, you have to look past that content and get better at the process, which is all the skill-based stuff we were talking about.
True. What they could even give you all of these items, and then you don't even know what to do with them.
Yeah.
What if your pictures are really bad? What if your storing is horrible? What if you can't even find where they are when they do sell?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like, we kind of like, if I gave you 1,000 items, will you know how to process them? And how long will it take you to process them? And will you be able to list it as well as I can? And at that point, if you haven't really followed and learned from that person who's good, best, great in the industry, you'll never fare well. Because at the end of the day, if I can beat you just on photos alone, that's that's easy. That's not even using any analytics. Let's just have the same, head to head. Like, so like, going back to that process, I think that's one of the things, that we all have unique processes that we have learned, but we have evolved and made it custom fit to our houses, to our lifestyle, to our schedule, and even to our own city scenario, seasons, and everything like that. Weather. I have a basement, so like, you think Glen's gonna have to start digging in his backyard and build a basement?
Yes.
So it's like,
I do.
Yeah, he might find treasure because it's sand.
Underground
serendipity, baby.
Yeah, exactly, right. And I think that's kind of like it. Like I'd rather say this: imitate somebody's skill rather than trying to find a Bolo list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you are gutsy enough to find a Bolo list, you should just mirror somebody's skill. Because I don't think you'll be way better off than following a Bolo list.
Now that we're done talking about the top brands, can we talk about the most profitable items and then the ones that sell the fastest?
Oh my gosh. I think the easiest to find one is like the killer for me. I'm like, oh my gosh, that just throws all of it out the window.
I did go live on YouTube, just doing the Wednesday live show, and there was like a good question regarding like competition and what do I think the market is and things like that. And I was telling people too that because I know people are still, about the inflation things. People don't have money, things like that.
Yeah.
People have money for things that they're willing to pay for right now. And I give the example of like, with the Mavericks being in the NBA Finals, of how many messages I got on eBay on how come, I mean, or can you do a next day shipping option? And my jersey price is already over retail. They're willing to pay that money to show that they're a fan, even though they're a bandwagoner. That they're a fan, to show everybody. You knew it was coming.
Yeah.
In that case, inflation doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
They're willing to pay the money for it.
You need to throw in a free name tag that has "Look at me" written on it that they can wear on their jersey.
And look at me.
Look at me, I'm a fan.
And I'm a fan. I swear, go sports. And
Go
so
sports
that's
ball.
yeah. That's where I feel like selling the fastest came to mind, because I'm like, it's gonna sell fast because it's trending.
Right
And
now,
if the Mavericks lose,
today.
are they even gonna buy them anymore? Some maybe.
How many returns are you gonna get?
Exactly. That also comes into play, which I'm already kind of trying to prepare for that already.
Mentally or
on the
otherwise?
returns.
Yikes.
I know, right?
Ouch.
And that's another trend. That bolos come around that they sell well, and then the next week they don't. And how many fingerlings, going back to that, were stuck after that trend died?
Dude,
There
I've
are
seen
untold
horror
dumpsters
stories.
of fingerlings
Yeah.
somewhere.
Somewhere.
So
Yep,
Well,
that's what happens.
But see, Glenn, even like listening through that example to what you're saying, like you have the wherewithal and the skills to understand those trends. So like, as long as the bandwagoners are, coming out in force to get their jerseys, like if you had the opportunity to get a bunch more of those jerseys right now and put them up, you would probably do it because you understand what's happening. But you wouldn't be like, oh, great, I'm going to plan to retire on this pile of jerseys because they're just going to sell like this forever. Like, better than that because you have
and
skills
they never
and
make the
experience.
playoffs again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where Ken's question comes in. Okay,
Yeah.
now what?
Now what?
Yeah. Now what?
That bolo's done for.
Right.
No.
What others?
Right.
Do I have any skills to look for anything new?
I mean,
now?
you know how to read. You know how to drive to a store.
That's right. You might know how to dig a basement before long. I mean,
yeah.
True.
So yeah, I mean, consider and evaluate everything that you have versus everything that you have learned. And can you answer the question? Now you have all of this. Now what?
Now what? We can keep going on for days if we wanted to.
And I think that's episode 33. That's a wrap. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.
See ya.
goodbye.